Oh hey, the Switch 2 got announced. Okay, let's talk about something else. Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance released in 2002 for the Game Boy Advance and was brought to us by the, at the time, newly reformed IGA team, who had previously given us Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Since roses are red and I have an erection, I'll be playing on the 2021 Advance Collection, which offers a port of the original game with no substantial changes. The plot takes place in 1748, 50 years after the events of Castlevania II, in which Simon Belmont, the protagonist of the first two games, vanquished Dracula's curse. Instead of playing as Simon, who may have aged a bit since his last quest, we take control of his grandson, Just Belmont. The albinism...
have a first name?
What?
He doesn't have a first name?
I just said it, he's just Belmont.
Okay, he's only Belmont.
Belmont is the name, and just his first name.
So he's Belmont?
No one likes you.
I know.
So one day, the best friend of Just, Maxim Kishin, returns from a training expedition wounded and suffering from amnesia. He informs Just that Lily, their childhood friend, has been kidnapped, and so the two of them, guided by the holy light of the anime childhood friend, decide to set off to Dracula's castle to rescue her. However, moments after arriving, Just and Maxim get separated by a giant living armor. Since he has no other option, Just ventures through the castle's first hallways only to be faced with death itself, who, instead of confirming Dracula's presence, claims that this castle is not a manifestation of his lord's power, but that of someone else entirely. And that's the gist of it. The narrative plays a bigger role than in Circle of the Moon, which is a nice improvement. There are more dialogues between the characters, and while it might not seem like much, it's enough to keep the mystery surrounding the castle and Lily's kidnapping interesting. But before I dive into this, or anything else for that matter, I want to get something out of the way. Ah, finally, it was really bothering me. So, first of all, Harmony of Dissonance is a lot more fast-paced than other Castlevania games. On the shoulder button of the controller, we have access both to a back dash and a forward dash we can virtually use non-stop. Dashing through the castle's halls at Mach 20 is great, and more importantly, if you always dash, you won't have to look at Just Belmont's ridiculous-looking running animation. Also, when Just jumps, he can change direction mid-air, but only if he's not attacking, which is a weird halfway between the older and modern Castlevania games. So it takes a bit of time to get used to, but it's nowhere near as painful as it was in Circle of the Moon with Nathan and the stick he had up his ass. But the main thing people remember about Harmony of Dissonance is the spell fusion system. In addition to the vampire killer, Just has access to 6 different sub-weapons, such as the daggers, the cross, or the new Sub-weapons cost hearts upon use, but when paired with one of the 5 spellbooks, their attack will change and they will instead consume MP. For example, pairing the Ice book with the Bible creates a powerful icy shockwave, whereas pairing it with the dagger grants us the ability to send homing missiles toward enemies. Or, if you combine the summoning book and the holy water, it will call forth a goddess who will sprinkle her bathwater onto you. Each book and spells have their use, so there's no reason to only use one, but I'll admit I personally did most of the game with the Pause of Fury and the Wind spellbook, and I'll give you 2 seconds to figure out why. However, something annoying is that if you want to swap book, you can only do it by going into the menu, which really breaks the pacing. But guess what? The game never mentions this, but you can actually swap books without going into this ugly looking menu. Using down plus both shoulder buttons turns the books on and off, and up plus left or right shoulder swaps them. Pretty useful, right? I actually randomly found it while doing my research for this video on a goddamn Reddit thread. And I have a feeling some of you might not have been so lucky. By the way, they didn't make the same mistake as Circle of the Moon where you had to grind for 30 minutes to get a DSS card. Here, they are hidden throughout the castle, so you'll naturally stumble upon them if you fuck around enough. While I'm talking about fucking around, yeah, I know, pretty smooth transition, am I right? The exploration is nothing you wouldn't expect from a Metroidvania. The game wants you to be curious, and has many interactive elements that add a bit of spice to the lot. Like here, I understood that this giant armor guy could be thrown into this wall to break it. So I did.
Ouch! Oh heavens! Oh goodness gracious!
And ended up face to face with a merchant that sold me cool equipment. And don't ask me what he's doing here, I have absolutely no idea. The different sections of the castle have a great ambience and feature some really cool enemies. Aside from the bosses who, for the most part, are really forgettable, we've got some classic monsters like the spooky
scary skeletons and shivers down your spine.
Some less classic, like Sonic the Hedgehog, and some with cool gimmicks, like the skeleton centipede you have to slide under, or the knights you can only kill by using the environment. Koji Igarashi produced Harmony of Dissonance with the intent of creating a game that was similar to Symphony of the Night. So naturally, getting lost and backtracking are an integral part of your adventure. Which is good, because that's two of the reasons you're playing this game, right? At least I hope it is, because this Castlevania can be a bit, messy. This is one of the game's controversies, so I'll do my best to consider both sides and be as objective and fair as I can possibly. Not at all, it'll be as subjective as usual. The Layered Castle, the equivalent of the inverted castle in Symphony of the Night. As we progress, we'll find these weird portals that bring us to a different location when we take them. No spoil, but as the story unfolds, we realize that they actually take us to another dimension entirely. What this means is that we'll explore two versions of this very castle, version A and version B. Right off the bat, it sounds like a cool idea. It makes for great environmental storytelling, which is nice, but there's a massive but. The visuals, monsters, and items you'll collect vary between the two versions, but the castles have the exact same room layout. In other words, you'll go through the same halls twice to do the same thing twice. And if you don't see the problem here, let me dumb it down for you. It's fucking repetitive. The layout is not fundamentally bad, but having to do the same stuff 2 times in a row kills the fun of it, since there's no longer the thrill of not knowing what's next. And like I said, the items you find may change, but their placement doesn't, and the same goes for the bosses.
I always spank my dough.
I'm pretty sure they were aware of this problem.
Who's your daddy?
Because aside from the usual vampire killer add-ons, armor pieces, and HP up potions, another kind of item you'll find scattered around are literal furniture. Why? Well, somewhere in the castle, there is a room you can furnish for, nothing actually. It's unique to Harmony of Dissonance, and I'm guessing they did this to compensate the lack of hidden rooms to try to make you feel like the back and forth between the castle are worth it. Basically the ancestor of the video game trend of putting pointless collectibles everywhere. And I mean, thanks, but what the hell is this doing in a Castlevania game? They gave us a fetch quest instead of fixing the rest of the game? What kind of idiot would be stupid enough to bother finding every single furniture for no reward whatsoever?
Didn't you say...
Ah, shut up. All of those back and forths create another hiccup though. By wandering around and killing enemies, you'll naturally gain way too many levels way too quickly. Combine this with the fact that we can spam magic like our life depends on it, which is kinda the case here to be fair, and we find ourselves with a total absence of challenge. It's not a deal breaker, but I'm starting to feel bad for killing these poor guys. They were minding their own business and I just came out of nowhere and ground them to death with my grinder spell, took their furniture, drained their water, broke their doors and... Wait, am I the bad guy? Nah, it's probably fine. Sometimes you'll find yourself in the right room but unable to progress because you're in the wrong dimension, which can be confusing or straight up frustrating depending on who you ask. Although I don't think it's as bad as some say it is. The main problems I have with this game lie elsewhere, and with all the gameplay I showed, you should see where I'm getting at. Harmony of Dissonance looks bad. It looks like Castlevania had an acid trip and tried to describe the sensation to a deaf person. If every other game of the franchise aims for a gothic horror atmosphere, then this one is more of a
kaleidoscope
horror kind of style. There is a dominance of bright, flashy colors and tacky visual effects. And while I think it's part of its charm, sometimes it's just too much. Like, what's up with bats in this castle? Why are they so... shiny? As much as I'd like to take the opportunity to tell a joke about how the devs were on acid while making the game, there's actually a technical reason behind this choice. The previous Game Boy Advance entry, Circle of the Moon, was a very dark game, and I don't mean that its atmosphere was oppressively eerie, it literally was too dark, due to the absence of backlighting on the Game Boy Advance. I won't go into the details, but basically, it's there to provide light from behind the screen, allowing you to see properly even without external lighting. Every modern device has something like this now, but back in the day, it wasn't so simple. So game designers had to find a way to make their game more visible, and the only logical answer to that was to make everything more flashy, giving this weird, fever dream looking art style. But that's not the worst part. Earlier, I stated that it looks like Castlevania had an acid trip and tried to describe the sensation to a deaf person. And you might be wondering why I said it was described to a deaf person specifically. That's because Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance easily has the worst soundtrack in the franchise. To be able to keep everything so bright, they had to use more of the GBA's resources to do the visuals, and the consequence is that they had less to make the music. And boy was this a mistake. Not only does it fail to live up to the high expectations of the series, but I'd even go as far as saying that it's
the biggest piece of dog shit.
I'm sorry, but when you go from this to this, you can't look at me in the eyes and tell me it's fine. But I might be biased, so what do you think about this, Rav, my good old friendly philosopher? That's what I thought, yes. I talked a lot about the game's shortcomings, but I actually enjoyed it. The plot is simple but nice, the gameplay, even if it suffers from a cruel lack of difficulty, is pretty solid, and the characters' portraits are beautiful. I'm doing a side note here, but Ayami Kojima's works never cease to amaze me. She's the one responsible for many of the franchise's most iconic arts. Unfortunately, she didn't work on Circle of the Moon, but she came back for Harmony of Dissonance. I mean, damn, look at this portrait. He's cool, she's hot, he's white, he's cool, he's stoned, and shirtless. Anyway, in the end, which one is it? Is it a good or a bad Castlevania game? Well, I don't know, make an opinion for yourself. Well, hello there. I hope you enjoyed the video. If that's the case, don't hesitate to subscribe, it's always appreciated. And you can always leave your comment down below to say if you would take care of the Grim Reaper's bones. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go figure out what to do next.